good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this webinar organized, co-hosted by EXPOFORUM St. Petersburg and KIT Group. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Dermot Ryan. I'm an account director with KIT Group. Previously, I worked within associations. I now work with associations. I work with them on their meetings and event strategy. And I also, in my role at KIT Group, I also act as executive director for 2 of the associations we work with. The pandemic has dominated our lives in the last 15 months. And perhaps now, as we begin, and I say cautiously and optimistically, we begin to emerge from the pandemic, it's good to look at future-oriented topics. And I think there's no topic more future-oriented than sustainability. It's something that we've talked about within the meetings industry for a very, very long time. And I think now, after the pandemic is over, I think there will be a growing interest in sustainability. And I think this will be reflected in how we all work together. So this webinar is an opportunity to bring together we'll take all this theory and put it into practice. And we're going to look at case studies from 3 different event partners, meeting partners from associations, a venue, a destination, and a professional conference management company. And they're going to bring very practical experience on how we can make our meetings as a whole more sustainable. Just starting on some housekeeping notes. Please, I would love to hear from you. We want this to be an interactive discussion. So please put your questions and comments in the chat function on YouTube. And we will go through the 3 presentations, and then at the end we'll take your questions, and we'll also have a roundtable discussion as a group. This is a friendly and safe digital space, so you please respect that. Thank you so much. So let's get going. Our first speaker is Paula Blomster from Mesokeskus in Helsinki. Paula is going to talk to us about an association client she hosted. Paula holds a master's degree in social science and has accomplished advanced studies in economics and business. She's worked in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Nicaragua, besides her home country, Finland. She's currently in charge of international sales in the largest exhibition and convention center in Finland, Mesokeskus, Helsinki.
Hello from Helsinki, Finland. My name is Paula Blomster and I work for one of the largest convention centers here in the Nordic countries. Our venue is called Mesokeskus. Not the easiest name to pronounce, but with an extremely easy access, only 1 train stop away from the central railway station of Helsinki. My job is to find large international events to be organized at our venue. Today, it's my pleasure to share with you our journey for a more sustainable event. We created it together with our client, European Association for International Education. But first, a video to give you an introduction of this event.
This year, in partnership with Mesokeskus, we have been able to take our sustainability initiatives to the next level, and we're very proud of what we've been able to achieve.
What I find depressing about the insinuation of many populist leaders today is the assumption that you coming first means everybody else has to come last.
We have to do something radically differently from what we've been doing.
The European Association for International Education held its conference at our venue in September 2019. This big, over 6,000 participants event had been confirmed to Helsinki already 4 years prior. However, thanks to our unplanned encounters with EAIE staff and myself in different face-to-face events at IMEX, IBTM, events by ICCA, we found out that we both strive for sustainability. This was a natural topic to discuss when we met, again unplanned, with Fiona Pelham. I have titled Fiona as the rock star of event sustainability. She was the chair to define the guidelines for ISO 20021, our sustainable event management standard. As the result of that encounter, we decided to make a case study. The EIA conference at our venue would be as sustainable as it was possible with the existing budget and timeline. Our plan was also to share the results with the industry. The planning for our sustainable actions was done in 4 ISO 20021 workshops created by Fiona. Here is a picture of our first encounter. It shows how much good energy sustainability brings along. In the picture, we have people from all different departments of our venue. Our facilitators, Fiona and Laura, and Sabrina, representing European Association for International Education. We did not choose the participants from our venue to these workshops based on their love to the nature or the degree they are in tree hugging. These people were the project management team for the EAIE conference. They had been assigned to this task before we planned to run an extra mile for sustainability. You can see in the picture the person in charge for catering, AV, exhibition building, project management, and myself for the sales. We also included our property manager and the person in charge for quality management. The first workshop started by running strategic analysis, PESTEL SWOT. It was a bit of a scary moment for us, working for the venue, to speak about our weaknesses in front of our client. But as we did it, we could speak openly about everything. Look for solutions and possibilities. I would say that we completely forgot the roles of a client and supplier. We were just one team trying to solve issues together. Through these analyses, we defined the most burning issues, the matters that bothered us the most. We were deeply worried about our planet and especially on our impact on it. Brilliantly, these issues were changed to objectives. What actions would it demand that our event would not be causing even more harm? We left the large picture of world hunger, biodiversity loss, and focused in our event. How we could do a change, or at least do less harm. It was an amazingly empowering moment, and I want to congratulate our facilitator, Fiona, on that approach. The objectives were reflected to our company values and ISO values. Based on that, we started drafting our sustainable development plan. To reach each objective, there were a number of targets. Then again, actions were defined to reach those targets, and each action had measurable results. I have here a shot of the plan. It is a simple document with our objectives, values, actions, names of people in charge, and finally the end result. I am happy to share this document with you if you are interested in it. So, we had defined 4 objectives we wanted to work on through this international conference. It was great to see how easy it was to find objectives that were interesting both for us and for our client. It is also worth to remind that ISO 20021 is a process. With each event, you want to improve your performance. These objectives we had defined together work for both of us. We at Messukeskus can measure our impact in events of similar size, and EAIE can do it in their future conferences. So let's go quickly through those objectives. The first two objectives interlap each other a bit: measuring and waste. We tried to measure everything we could: water consumption, energy consumption, construction waste, food waste, reusable materials used, working hours of the students, etc. On the other hand, we wanted to concentrate in waste, as pollution is one of the largest problems in our societies and in our events. We wanted to educate the exhibitors to use materials that are reusable. And for example, by digging deep in the food waste, we could recommend European Association for International Education about the participants' favorite dishes, so they could take that into account in their future face-to-face events. In this picture, you have an example how to reduce waste. Make sure that you are communicating your actions to your participants. EAIE did great work by promoting the tap water, which is very drinkable here in Finland. This way, we reduced the number of plastic bottles used. Third objective was education. Both parties noticed that we had worked for long for sustainability, but we were quite poor telling about it. One of the actions we did was that we updated our websites. In Messukeskus, we also opened discussion to get recommendations how to improve our sustainability performance. Under the fourth objective, the project management, we looked for events to benchmark with, to find inspiration. For our own big surprise, we found some good examples within our venue itself. Again, one has to stress the communication. It is so important that we tell others what we are doing and we share our results. To follow my own advice, here shortly an infographic of some of our end results, which we are very proud of. I want to mention about the CO2 emissions. We calculated them by using a tool which a Finnish event agency, Tapaus, has on its website. Nobody says that this calculator is 100% scientific, but it gives an indication which actions can make a difference. For example, by offering on one day vegetarian meal, there was a significant drop in the emissions. Today, there are so many beyond meat options that this can be easily done without the participants feeling hungry. European Association for International Education has now decided not to offer any meat in their events. Prior to finish, I want to stress shortly of the importance to move on from environmental factors when speaking about sustainability. I think our industry now craves for examples what you can do for the social sustainability. The EIA conference in Helsinki had already themed the event encompassing all voices. Topics and the choice of the speakers and even performers followed this theme. European Association for International Education hired for the opening ceremony a Finnish rapper, Signmark. He is best presented by his work, and with Signmark's permission, I present a short clip from his YouTube channel.
Fighting with the picture, can fit inside the frame. Shadow boxing fear that calls me by my name. Feeling, believing that I am something wrong, that I don't belong. They're pointing their fingers, they're painting me grey. I know I'm not worthless, I don't care what they say. I pray for direction, I'm tired of feeling alone. Fighting
is the first deaf rapper in the world. We should follow his advice and fight for a more sustainable event industry.
That was a really illuminating. I would like to remind everybody to put any comments or questions in the chat, and we'll cover them at the end. And Paula will cover the questions at the end. We'll do the 3 presentations first. The next speaker is my colleague, Laura Norger. Laura is acting head of our association management division. She's going to speak about KIT Group's sustainability journey, so to speak. Laura joined KIT Group in 2014 after 9 years experience working for not-for-profit organizations. She's got a master's degree in sustainable development. Since joining KIT Group, she's helped build and grow the reach of her clients, primarily medical professional associations, and she's been an active member of KIT Group's Sustainability Task Force since 2016 and part of the core team working on ISO 2012-1 certification for KIT Group, which she's going to tell you all about now.
Greetings. I'm happy to be with you today to speak about our sustainability journey at KIT Group. First of all, just to give you a bit of background about who we are a professional conference organizer, and we also take care of digital and public events, and we also provide association management services. We've got more than 30 years experience in the professional conference business and operate worldwide. We have more than 75 offices, representative offices, and 6 permanent offices. 170 employees in total from 22 different countries. We have our own virtual conference platform called OPAID. We use it for digital and hybrid events. And we are, as a professional conference organizer, YAPCO accredited. And we also have an ISO certification for quality management. In terms of the people who lead sustainability at KIT Group, we have our CEO and managing directors. So the sustainability journey as a company would not have been possible without their support and their commitment. We also have a sustainability task force that looks after things like our corporate social responsibility initiatives. And it's also the task force that's provided or developed sustainable event guidelines. And in fact, most matters sustainability are implemented by the task force. We've also got other staff members who are not part of the task force, but who play a really key role in driving sustainability for the events that they manage. In terms of sustainability in action, we've got a number of internal activities that we do at our Berlin headquarters, things that we organize for employees. For example, we've got a sponsor a child program that sponsors school fees for 2 secondary school girls in Kenya. We hold sustainability lunches around different themes such as food waste or humanitarian aid. And we celebrate awareness days such as World Mental Health Day or World Earth Day. And we also look after greening the office policies about energy saving or recycling. And as a company, we support 2 charities. These are long-term partnerships, and we donate staff time or organize fundraising events for them. For example, runs like you see here, or other social events. So in terms of what we do on the event side, we've developed a green meeting policy that's sort of a framework with basic guidelines and things that can be done at most of our events. And we also have a green meeting handbook that provides more detail than the green meeting policy, provides a lot of illustrations about things that have been done on past events and, for example, what can be done on the catering front and concretely, and also a list of suppliers that we've worked with in the past, where things have worked out well sustainability-wise. And as a company, we've also signed up to Verpflichtet. That's a sustainability code for the German-speaking events industry. So I'll just give you as an illustration an example of 2 conferences where we've implemented sustainability measures. One of them is the conference of the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA. So their conference is called the World Library and Information Congress. And in the 2018 edition that took place in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, there were 3,390 participants from 113 countries. So we were given the challenge of making the Congress more sustainable. And for this purpose, 2 goals were defined. The first one was to give back to the Malaysian people, Malaysian community. And the second goal was to reduce the ecological impact of Congress. So how this was done for the local community or the people side, there was a live streaming of sessions on YouTube and Facebook, not for all of the sessions, but the most important sessions where the association felt it was important to share the knowledge beyond just the conference attendees. And yeah, so these were available for local community, but also internationally. And these were hugely popular. Then we also involved local volunteers. Altogether, there were over 300 volunteers. And as I understand, these really were very important for the atmosphere and creating a great atmosphere during the event days. Local culture was also highlighted. There was an alley of roll-ups showcasing local Malaysian library culture. Local charities were also supported. There was a donation box that was set up in support of charities that provide access to education for children in Malaysia. And there was also a book sharing initiative where in the end 83 books were donated to local schools by delegates. On the ecological side, so we try to avoid paper waste by doing as much digital as possible. Our team knew in advance how many people would use the app or download the app and not require a printed program. So yeah, it means we're able to print less paper program because 64% of the delegates would download the app. And most of the signs inside the conference center were also digital. For the few communication materials that had to be printed, eco-friendly paper was used. And public transport was also promoted as much as possible. Kuala Lumpur offers a free bus service and also airport's express train. So these were promoted in order to try and decrease the use of taxis. The second case study is from the International Society for Pediatric and Adolescent Diabetes. They held their 44th annual Congress in Hyderabad, India. There were 1,035 participants altogether from 69 countries. So the part we want to highlight there, it's about the event legacy part. The conference theme was Reaching the Unreached. The title was chosen by the local conveners, partly due to the stigma attached to having diabetes in India. People with the condition often don't speak about it because they are afraid of being ostracized by their peers or friends and family. So the idea was to raise awareness about the condition and also make it clear that it's possible to live with diabetes and also achieve great things. At the opening ceremony, there were 22 local children with diabetes who performed a medley of local dances. And yeah, it's also important to note that these children also came from disadvantaged backgrounds, and many of them had never taken the train before, for example. And so this was a first. They had to take the train to come to Hyderabad. And that was very moving. Their dance and their dance routine had a very big impact on the conference attendees. Then there was also a set of Diabetes 101 sessions. These were basic scientific sessions aimed at the unreached health professionals from low-income countries who were present at the conference. And they were also accessible for free on demand after the event. Local press and media coverage was also really important. Also, there were also TV and radio interviews held with the local conveners and representatives from the society holding the event. And this really helped raise awareness about the condition of diabetes, and yeah, also highlighting the fact, like I said earlier, that it's possible to live with a condition and also, for example, be an athlete or be a prime minister. At the time, Theresa May was still prime minister in the UK. And then there was a charity run which included 150 young people with type 1 diabetes as well. So they were part of a running event. And after the run, there was also a Q&A for patients and their families. And yeah, it was attended by 500 people. So that was very popular as well. Altogether, if you ask anyone from the society who's attended the event or any conference attendees, it's just was, from what I understand, also very emotional but also really, really positive experience throughout the conference for everyone. And yeah, it's certainly a conference that will be remembered for many years. So some of the key success factors, in our opinion, why this went so well on the event legacy front, all the measures that were implemented also very well aligned with the association's strategic goals. And in fact, even the decision to go to India, it's sort of reflective of the goals of the society to be more present in developing countries or low-income countries. The local conveners were absolutely central to creating the special atmosphere and adjusting the conference format to the local needs. And local partnerships was also really important in part of the success here. So these were two just really, yeah, it's just really just highlighting a few things that are done at some of the events that we managed. There's so many more things that we could tell you, but yeah, time is short. So we've got many things that we implement on various conferences, but now we're looking towards having a more standardized approach. And as part of this journey, we are looking to get ISO 2012-1 certified. What this is, it is an international standard that helps companies and organizations that work in the events industry with managing their events more sustainably. And it looks after the ecological, social, and economic impacts of events. So it's all about, it's more of a framework, and it's all about implementing procedures and processes. So it's a management system. And it's not about fulfilling certain criteria. It's not a checklist of having to reach specific goals that are set by the standard. And it doesn't tell you how to be more sustainable concretely. It's each company or person who's interested in doing ISO 20121 has to set their own policies and objectives. It's a participative approach and in developing the system. So stakeholder engagement is really key for creating the system and also managing it and improving it over time. And the goal is to really embed sustainability within the organization, or if it's for a single event, for the one event that you might be looking to get certified for. So our journey so far, we have completed phase 1. That was we had an external consultant that helped us look at our company processes and everything that we have that's sustainability related, both within our business operations and also in terms of policies in place for managing our events. And they've also done a carbon footprint survey of the company and employee mobility. And from these, they've also issued a set of recommendations for things that we should improve or can improve. And these consultants have also provided a sustainable event trainings for our staff members. And then for the points in orange that you can see here, these are things that we are still to do. So the first and most important and really core to this whole process is a stakeholder engagement. So it means having discussions with venues, suppliers, obviously a selection, because we work on so many conferences, we can't speak to all the venues, all the suppliers, but a selection of venues and suppliers, hotels, any caterers, any other companies we have to work with when organizing an event. We have to make sure to get a set of feedback from these people, and this should really flow into the sustainable management system that we develop. And yeah, and would flow, then the feedback would also flow into our sustainability policy. Also, from the sustainability policy, we would set objectives and metrics. So how do we prove that we're really making sure we fulfill, we care about human rights and we make sure we abide to certain standards. So for this, we can't just say that we're doing it, but we have to really set objectives and metrics. And then we have a sustainability toolkit that's already in development, and this is really guidance for teams on procedures to manage their events sustainably, and includes things like surveys for suppliers, or also a sustainability activities menu, things that can really be done concretely at events. And then once we have everything ready, and I tell you there's a lot of paperwork as well around getting the certification, then we can also communicate about our new sustainable event management systems and launch everything properly. And we're looking to get certified by the first quarter of next year. And really important to highlight is that this is not just once set. The management system is supposed to be continually improved. So the idea is that also we have to put controls in place and reports about how we've been doing on our objectives and metrics, and if things are require adjustment, it might mean that we review our sustainability policy or adjust the objectives and metrics that we've set for our processes. And just based on what we've done so far, just some of the key ingredients that we see for implementing ISO 20121. First of all, is a leadership commitment. This is really key that they provide the resources, human resources, and also supportive of training, and which has been the case luckily for us. And then it's really important to engage all stakeholders, as I've mentioned before, so that it's a participative system that's been developed, or the system is based on feedback and has buy-in from other people, and not a top-down approach. So just creating a policy in a vacuum is not really the essence of ISO 2012-1. And thirdly, agility and the willingness to reevaluate and adjust processes is really important. And in fact, it's a requirement from the standard. So yeah, if you want to hear more about the next steps and how things develop, then stay tuned. You can check in on what we're doing on our website, www.kit-group.org, or also email us at sustainability@kit-group.org, or you can also follow us on social media. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks so much. Moving on to our third speaker and final speaker. Our final speaker is Aileen Crawford, Head of Conventions at Glasgow Convention Bureau in Scotland, UK, and she's going to speak on the role that destinations can play, using Glasgow as a case study, who are really on top of their game in this. She's going to focus particularly on the business case. Aileen is responsible for the successful positioning of Glasgow as a conference destination for national and international association meetings. She's a keen supporter of the meetings industry. She served as board member for a number of meeting industry associations, and she's currently the lead for business tourism workstream within Glasgow's Tourism and Visitor Plan 2023. She's also ICA Destination Sector Co-Chair. Thank you.
Hello there, I'm Aileen Crawford, the head of the Glasgow Convention Bureau in Scotland, and I'm absolutely delighted to be with you today, and many thanks to the team at KIT and EXPOFORUM for the very kind invitation. So I'm joining today to talk about some practical hints and tips and ideas that we've implemented here in Glasgow that really aligns with the Sustainable Glasgow strategy and our work with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. A little bit of background, first of all. Glasgow was the first UK city to join the Global Destination Sustainability Index back in 2016. And that was very much aligning to the People Make Glasgow Greener strategy to encourage more low carbon, energy, renewable conferences to the destination, but also to support the city and Scotland's drive to reduce carbon emissions and to align to the sustainable credentials and aspirations of our city and our country. Recently, we've created some workshop concept ideas for our clients aligned to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and that's a little bit of the information that I'm very keen to share with you today. So you'll be able to find more information on the People Make Glasgow Greener strategy on the Glasgow Convention Bureau website. The idea is to be able to offer sustainable ideas for conference organisers and delegates so they can be as green at conference as they are at home. There's a toolkit that advises clients on venues, hotels, restaurants that have green credentials and accreditation, and ideas of how the organisers themselves can make their conferences more sustainable, working with our city partners and conference organisers such as those at KIT. So the strategy and vision covers 4 key areas, looking at our Dear Green Place, the city itself, the social enterprise and companies that work in the circular economy that our clients can partner with, food revolution, and ideas on how to reduce food waste, and accessible as well. So each of those goals are embedded within the strategy and are used as a resource for our clients. It's also worth mentioning that although we look at People Make Glasgow Greener and the alignment to sustainability, We also appreciate that the UN Sustainable Goals are broader than just the green agenda, and it's important to be able to offer our clients the ability to work with companies that are engaged in the social enterprise businesses that work within the circular economy. Food Revolution we've talked about, considering the partners in the city that offer the opportunity to reduce food waste for our conference delegates, and to consider their accessibility as well, and to ensure that the venues are accessible to all. So what have we done with the UN goals that make it attractive and easy for our conference organisers to use? And we've actually created a fun workshop for our clients where we have these flashcards of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and given some very useful and very practical hints and tips on what practical solutions and ideas that could be implemented by the organisers to ensure that some of these goals, or all of the goals, or one or two of the goals, can be achieved by the conference themselves. We've given some ideas. The clients themselves and the conference organisers come up with new ideas, but ultimately the aim is to make the conference more sustainable. And it's all about getting involved at the planning stage and to look at how a conference organiser can be more responsible. And these embedded initiatives are a great thing to share with the delegates, to share with the sponsors and the exhibitors, and to be able to market the conference as being a sustainable meeting, which is a very positive accolade for the organisers themselves to take forward. To delve a little bit deeper into some of those key areas, Food Revolution, for example, and reducing food waste from conferences, we all agree that that's very important to take forward. And some of the initiatives from the partners in the city are very forward thinking. For example, the University of Strathclyde are offering conference organisers menus that talk about the travel miles, the air miles for the menu. So not just about the calories for the conferences and the menus, but actually to say, you know, how much of this menu comes from locally sourced food, how many air miles does this menu choice actually deliver for the delegates themselves. So being able to offer some very useful advice to make sustainable choices. As part of the Smart City initiatives, we've also curated and collated some really quite enjoyable fun activities for delegates to do as a bit of a conference legacy, a green legacy. So some volunteering opportunities where the delegates can work with some of the greener brands in the city to be able to say that a conference could leave a legacy of creating a wildflower meadow of local Scottish flowers as part of their legacy in unused spaces across the city. And this is all listed within our toolkit to make it easy for the conference organisers to share with their delegates. We also appreciate that it's very important to be advocates of sustainability as a convention bureau, representing so many of the industry members, the hotels, the restaurants, the conference centres, and really promoting and supporting them in their activities to be more sustainable. We know that from the conference organisers' perspective, that it is so important for them to know that they are working with sustainable venues that have those credentials, that they really trust us to advocate on their behalf. So just this year, we included a filter within our website, so conference organisers can actually search on venues that have green credentials. So that green accreditation, that third-party accreditation, is very important to us to have that evidence proof that our venues and our partners are following sustainable activity themselves. And really being able to promote that and encourage our venues, work ourselves to be more sustainable, it's very much part of that journey and doing what we can to limit the impact of conferences on the planet, do our bit for the climate emergency, but also to acknowledge and promote conferences as part of responsible travel, and for us all to do our bit as those host destinations to make the conference experience as sustainable as possible. So on that note, I hope you've enjoyed the delve into the People Make Glasgow Greener strategy. You can see a lot of this information is on our website, so feel free to have a look later. And thank you very much for your interest, and it's been lovely to join you. Thank you now.
Thanks, Aileen, for that. That was really interesting what you're doing in Glasgow. Before we move to panel discussion, I'm just going to remind you what a face-to-face meeting actually looked like. It seems like so long ago. I mean, really, for most of us, a lot of us, it's been like 2019. And EXPOFORUM and KT Group cooperate each year on a study mission to St. Petersburg. So this is just a short video showing what we did.
Just see this amazing convention center here. This is absolutely architectural. It's a highlight. It's a milestone, and it's absolutely perfect.
My first impression here with the EXPOFORUM, it's a huge venue that obviously can hold very different kinds of meetings. Looks very promising, and it's very close to the airport.
I love it. It's absolutely amazing. I'm really, really impressed with it from what I've seen so far, yeah.
The convention center, I also see it very convenient because it's flat and very easy to know where you are.
The building is new, all the electronics, IT.
The Russian scientists, they have to connect themselves with the European associations or with the worldwide association and just say, okay, we are from Russia and we want also to have the next conventions, maybe if it is in 5 years, having in St. Petersburg or Moscow or wherever. The Russian scientists have to play a more active role within the society.
So I can fit my executive committee, I can put my council into it. So everything is in one place, so it's a one-stop shop in a way, which is very nice.
A very beautiful city, I must say, a lot of cultural points and points of interest to see. First of all, I must say I'm very honored to be part of this program, being in a very distinguished group. So far I can only say good things. The information prior to arriving was very clear.
I'm actually thrilled to be here. Thank you again for being here.
I find it very easy, very similar when you get US ESTA or your Canadian ESTA to even more, I would say faster. And I received the confirmation within 28 hours, I would say, so it was very, very fast.
Colleagues are very thrilled about the possibility to organize a convention here, and we have actually two associations who are quite interested in doing the next convention and the next rotating conference here in St. Petersburg. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I'd like to invite our speakers back for a little round table. Hi there. Hi, Aileen. Hi, Laura. Hi, Paula. So are we ready for face-to-face meetings again? We ready to get going again? I think so. Thank you so much for your contributions, and it's just good to have a conversation and just see we can talk across each other, not so much me asking questions, because I think everything fits together, of course, with sustainability. So all these angles, the different partners come together. Maybe just starting, first of all, just with Paula. I mean, one of the things I found interesting about your presentation was also, you know, when you were talking about even being honest about weaknesses in front of clients, you know, and I think that's the, you know, against greenwashing, you know, where greenwashing is where venues or cities or organizations pretend that they're very, very green and they're not actually doing something. And for me, that kind of showed a real, that honesty shows an authenticity. And I just wanted to, that was obviously very important for you, that like that commitment from the organization that you build something kind of real, and it's not just about, you know, in some way promoting your green credentials.
Yes, it's. I think the issues with and you can't tackle them a lot, and the only way to do it is to be honest and as mentioned, we did it quite quickly, this our project. So all the budgets were set, and so we had to be open about everything. And I think it really just made our relationship very special. So we can still speak about it like almost 2 years after the event took place. So very much recommendable to everybody.
And I think those case studies are very important for people because it's that learning and sharing information, etc., that's so important. But just one other question, Paul, about ISO 2012, the whole process, or what you did. Is it just for the big players? I mean, is it also possible, because you can scale up or scale down, and this is also a question coming back, I think I'll pick up on that with Aileen, because, you know, there's different cities, and you know, because I think just so that people aren't scared that you can always go a little bit or go part of the way. Paula?
Yes, what I was saying that like our venue hosts the ISO 14001, 9001 for a long while, and these are big processes, but here we chose one event, and it was very recommendable, so you don't have to, well, I'm a vegetarian, I would never eat an elephant, but there is the saying, so eat one piece of the elephant at the time, so it was very good way to do it. And we actually, so we had workshops that we were paying, our consultant was Positive Impact Events, and but currently there is a workshops that has been created by Positive Impact Events in years of time, and now they are all free of charge. So the material we went through in our workshops are now free of charge. If you go to the Positive Impact, I can put it on the chat maybe, the website. But this was covered by the British Embassy in Helsinki as the task for COP26, which is taking place very soon in UK. That was their contribution in Finland, and this is all in English, so it's available for anybody. And I would really recommend do the same. Start with the small steps. So take one event, as we did, and we found solutions that we can use for all our events. So it's because what you're doing in KIT Group sounds very amazing, and it's going to be the full huge package. We did kind of ourselves. We didn't have like an audit. We didn't have this audited by a third party. It was more like a self-declaration kind of thing. But on the other hand, we love stories, so this is also a possibility for storytelling. But yes,
definitely.
Opportunity for everybody. So shouldn't be only for big players. Should be possible for everybody. That's my advice.
That's very true. And Aileen, from your perspective, like what advice would you give to convention bureaus or destinations? And again, is it possible, you know, is it just the, you know, I suppose it really needs a strong commitment from the city really helps, but, you know, what other factors can people leverage?
Thank you very much, Dermot. I think this discussion shows that we don't have to do it by ourselves. I think when you're looking at the conference, you've got your client, you've got your delegates, your host venue, your hotels, your professional conference organizer, and we can all do our bit that ultimately supports the delivery of a sustainable conference going forward. Because I think it can be overwhelming as a destination to think that you have to take this on board by yourself. And it really is, as Paula was saying there, those incremental steps that all move us along that metaphorical journey. And I think from Glasgow's perspective, we joined the Global Destination Sustainability Index in 2016. And it was really great to start working on that type of project, because it shows you what you can measure. And fundamentally, you can't manage what you don't measure. So we had to start looking at saying how many of our hotels do have third-party accreditation, how many of our restaurants do have commitment to locally produced food, where do our professional conference organisers say their sustainable policy lies. And when you pull all of that together, you can actually make a very strong case. And that is what our clients, our delegates, are asking for. They want to know that they can be as sustainable at conference as they are at home. And I would say just going on that and treating it as that journey and just looking to see that incrementally you can get better by working together is hugely important.
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything, I suppose. It's just helping people. You know, people are open to this, but sometimes they just need a little bit of help together. Just making it easy as possible to, let's make it as easy as possible for people to act in a sustainable way. Just go back to you, Laura. Just a question about like authenticity and greenwashing again. You know, how important was that in terms of making, you know, being authentic about sustainability and not doing it because it's a buzzword or you think you should be doing it?
I guess that's always the core on that is people have different understandings of sustainability, also do it for various reasons. But certainly on the at the KIT group level, all of the people who are really active on the sustainability front, it's really, really important to us that it's not about greenwashing, and we want to do, so also so much more than what we have, and doing this ISO 2012-1, like you said, Eileen, like setting metrics so they can really, that will help us track, and then also really show and make this transparent as well. It's really important to us.
Somebody has asked, I'll just do some questions that have come in. So, you know, in terms of certifications, whatever they make, green certifications, like what percentage of your clients are actually asking for the certification? Or maybe in general, how much are you being asked? I mean, I know at KIT we're asked more and more when we do RFPs. There's an element of that we have to respond to. Or is it only a nice to have feature? I mean, at the end of the day, and this is a good question actually, because it comes up a lot, the client always looks to the financial impact. You know, the financial impact is often obviously quite dominant, the budget, etc. Would one of you like to kind of pick up on that, kind of the interest from clients?
I don't mind coming in, because this has come up amongst quite a few of the ICA destination discussions as well, because the client, especially in the association world, we know has very clear budgets, that there's an envelope that they can work within, and there's also dates. So many of our clients have to be really clear about the dates that they can have. So of course that's going to be important. They can't clash with a world conference or clash with a European conference if they're a national meeting. But that doesn't mean, I think, from our perspective or even the client's perspective, that sustainability isn't important. It's just, as you'll know, at KIT Group, and Paul will know from her clients, that there are other quite urgent criteria that they have to match. So I don't think it's an either or. Once you've got your dates and your budget, then of course that comes into the conversation. So we always include it in our RFPs to our venue partners to ask for their sustainable credentials. That's part of the membership criteria of working with the Convention Bureau.
Yeah, and I also like these flashcards you had about the sustainability. It's that kind of conversation that, you know, having that conversation with the clients, because you're like framing it for them to say, you know, what do you want to do? You know, it's not us telling you you should have a vegetarian day. It's like, what are your goals and how do they align with sustainability, the UN goals? Paul or Laura, do you want to come in on that kind of general point about interest from clients?
Yes, I wanted to say, I would say I've been with the conferences since 2008, maybe also more like a DMC PCO level first. And I remember in 2008, it was all Michelin star. It was completely different ball game. And then sustainability is something that our venue has worked for 12 years or something like that. But I could really spot the date. I could say June 6th, 2019. Mainly the congresses. Well, our case study was a educational conference, but most of the conferences we are hosting are the medical conferences. And since June 2019, until we could have site visits, it was really sustainability. I just came, every single client was asking for sustainability. So I really see 2019 as Fridays for the Future, but there was a lot of things, and suddenly it was, I mean, completely different questions what you could have had, let's say, 11 years before. So I think the sustainability is bigger, and then having those certificates, I mean, that's the proof. It's not only storytelling, it's somebody has giving the validation. So yeah. I do believe that's coming like something you should have. But yeah. I could really see that it was not anymore the toxicology, environmental conferences that were asking for it. Was every single client was asking for it.
Yeah, and the certification shows that you really are serious, of course, whether it's sustainable destinations or ISO, etc. It shows that there is a seriousness. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say on our end, of course, we've seen, as you know, Dermot, as well, that there's been an increase as well in the demand for having more sustainable events. But I also see that I think there's still a lot of associations who don't have this at the forefront of their mind. They're really still looking at other factors, or they might be prejudices about this having to be more expensive. And it might not have to be, in fact. So it's good if we're able to show them that there is also that being sustainable can also make more business sense, or in fact perfectly align with their goals as an association, but they don't realize it. So I think there's more that can be done, and especially by starting those discussions and making sure that we always discuss that point and hear about from the various people we work with on the conference what's doable, and not put this on the back seat anymore.
Yeah, and I find as well, just from working on association bids with venues, cities, etc. I mean, it's obviously there are certain other factors that are really important. You know, as we know from this whole bidding process, it's very complex. Sometimes it's political. It depends on the professors you've got on board. I mean, there's so many different factors, but it's another element to the whole picture, because I often find these decisions are often made quite emotionally. And sometimes it's the whole picture. I mean, I've been involved in some bids where, you know, you would think that price would be the factor, but some other things come out because somebody's particularly interested in whatever reason, but they're particularly interested in sustainability. They believe that this is a particularly big factor. And I think also if there's a tight competition, it can give certain destinations or cities the edge. And I think also as an organizer, when you go into a city or a venue where it's set up and, you know, they get, as Aidan was talking about, being able to, you know, giving the kit basically, the toolkit as such, that you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to think about where do I go from here. So if you have a client that's interested, I think it's also looking to the future. I think it's also like saying, well, where are we going to be in 2 or 3 years' time? And I really do feel that there is going to be more and more interest in this as time goes on. Somebody has asked, which is also a good question, because it's like online meetings, you know, virtual meetings versus physical meetings, you know, kind of converting online to physical presence. And it's almost like a contradiction in some way that, you know, we as an industry, I suppose, are a very unsustainable industry in many ways. And that we want, in some ways, virtual meetings, you know, it's kind of almost like they are the most sustainable meetings possible. Do you want to say something about this, Laura, perhaps about, you know, basically sustainable meetings, like hybrid meetings or in-person events? Because I think sometimes there's a myth that virtual events have no impact on the environment.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
So I think the bottom line is that hybrid or digital events can be more sustainable than in-person events. But having a digital component to an event doesn't automatically make the event more sustainable, especially if you're talking about hybrids. So for example, hybrid events, of course, it's on the accessibility front. It gives people who have reduced mobility or health limitations or who have a lower income the opportunity to attend the event in that format. But you also have to look at things like, do the participants really have access to the technology they need to participate in the event, or can they afford it? And some associations, for example, are providing support in order to make sure that their low-income attendees can participate in digital or hybrid events. And things like, also, does a digital platform make any provisions for people who have hearing or hearing difficulties or are visually impaired? Yeah, and so the idea, accessibility-wise, ideally, if it's a hybrid event, participants should be able to really have the option to choose between either in-person or digital. And it doesn't mean that the in-person aspect of an event should get neglected. There should still be, it should still be as inclusive as possible on site or in the venue. And just on the carbon footprint side, so hybrid and digital can really, well, of course, really help reduce the carbon footprint because there's no travel or less travel. But for example, with hybrid, if you take, for example, an event that used to have 1,000 attendees before COVID-19, and then still have 1,000 attendees, and then add the virtual attendees on top, then you're not decreasing the carbon footprint of the event. So yeah, I think it's something that has to be looked at, in context, and yeah.
And Aileen and Paula, are we just in industries by nature? We're talking about sustainability, but by our very nature, we're encouraging people to fly to other destinations. And is that not almost like a contradiction in ourselves? I mean, I say, are we being hypocritical?
I think we need to recognise it, and for many years I think our industry has been challenged on that, because people have known we've been flying in delegates. But when we're working, especially in the association world, when this is about bringing the world's best minds together to lead medical innovation or to look at industries being smarter, and ironically working on the climate emergency through science and innovation, then the delegates themselves are saying they have to get together for knowledge exchange, peer-to-peer. The fact that we would just only talk to ourselves doesn't help innovation. It doesn't move us forward. It doesn't manage to mitigate the climate emergency, because the scientists would only have themselves to talk to. So I think totally agree what Laura's saying there, that this face-to-face transactional world, virtual, works very well. Business meetings, the thought of flying into Brussels for a meeting and flying home again may never have to happen again, because we're more comfortable with this. But that idea of that responsible congress opportunity of having people in a destination for longer, spending time together, then I think we should advocate for the industry to say that this is responsible, and that the business events and conference world will only manage if the delegates can meet face to face.
Yeah. And Paula, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I'd like to add, you can offset. I mean, it's of course not the only solution, but as it said, it's to create the new knowledge and maybe save lives, or as you said, Eileen said, to find other solutions for sustainability. We need to meet face to face, and we have a simple tool with offset, and this is. I don't know if it's hypocritic, but I think that is a solution, especially for a destination like ours, where it's quite difficult to come by train. From St. Petersburg, we can of course contact easily. But yes, I think it's you have to take the whole picture along, and that's why we have to do sustainable events, so we are not blamed on the issues. So
yeah. And somebody asked about, one of the questions was on COVID and sustainable development research, which is kind of an interesting question, because I think my answer would be I'm not familiar with any yet, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot we're going to be looking at. You know, what's going to happen post, you know, what's going to happen to people's traveling patterns? Are people just going to go to national meetings or regional meetings or international meetings? Are people going to choose to go to fewer meetings? So, I mean, I think in terms of that whole question on COVID research around sustainability development, I think it's coming, and I think there's very clever people at universities and various places probably working on that at the moment. And it'll be very interesting, I think, within the meetings industry in the coming year or so to see what the knock-on effect, because at the moment we're just kind of guessing about what the effect would be. But I just wanted to pick up maybe on COVID, particularly with Aileen and Paula, and just saying how it has changed things in some way, like virtual site visits. I mean, is this all kind of working? I mean, do you know, what's your kind of experience of virtually functioning as a destination, promoting a destination, promoting a Congress Centre?
Paula, do you want to go first this time?
Okay. Well, I think the whole business has been on the hold, all in all. So we did together with our convention bureau. They organized for us. They did virtual site visits, and it has helped, of course, on the first contact. But I still haven't had anybody deciding on the virtual, so everybody is basically waiting to come over and see with their own eyes. So unfortunately, we seem to be in this face-to-face business completely on that level as well. So yes, we tried it and has worked here between, but it has been like a mode in the between times.
Thanks.
Yeah, yes, I agree with Paula that there's a lot you can do with videography, of walking around the venue with your phone and things like that. But actually, to run a meeting live, I do think the planning meeting, the planners want to be live. So I could ask you that back as a world-renowned PCO. Are you happy with virtual site visits? Would you be comfortable? Maybe if you've already been once. If you've never been, would you be happy with virtual? What does KIT think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think that if you're doing a bid process for a client, I think you just need to, if you don't know the venue already and the city already, then you really need to come on site. And I always like to see how everything fits together, of course, because it's not just, as we've said before, it's all the various elements, you know, whether it's hotels, the venue, how the convention bureau works, how the city works, you know, are they working together as a partnership? But I have done some virtual site visits, but it's interesting that I've done them for places that I mightn't have it on my agenda right now for a client. You know, I've been invited to, for example, one, and I've done one particular one where it wasn't on, or a client wasn't specifically asking for it, but I thought to myself, this is interesting. You know, I found it quite good because I wasn't going to fly, you know, 5,000 kilometers just to see this venue, which we, you know, there wasn't a real interest, a client interest from. So on that element, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. And it kind of worked. I mean, just walking around the venue, you got to, obviously not for the city, it's more challenging, but definitely you got a feeling for the venue. And I know there's a lot of virtual tools, but I think it's like with human beings, it's a little bit better. And it was like a team, one person at the camera, the other person did the talking, so they worked as a teamwork. So I thought it was, I did ask myself, I thought, are we going to see more of this, you know, kind of in the future? I'll just pick up on some other questions that have come in. Just maybe you could answer this, Laura. It was just talking about suppliers and sustainability programs. You know, how important, you know, in terms of selecting suppliers with a sustainability program, you know, in terms of like checklists, and what about flexibility if you have to choose destinations and compare prices? How does that kind of work? Like how prescriptive is it, so to speak?
So on the ISO 2012 side, so if you, that's the supply management aspect, and talking to suppliers is really, really important. And essentially it's the certification tries to encourage people to have discussions with their suppliers. So it's not about necessarily imposing things on them or saying, be sustainable or we don't work with you. But there's a certain, so there has to be some willingness, yeah, to provide certain things on events. And of course, it depends on the actual competency requirements. So if the client were to say, I don't know, they want to be, they want just locally sourced food, and that's not possible with a certain location then and their caterer, then that would of course be an issue. So, but the idea is to have discussions and with suppliers and try and find a way of aligning. And if we work together regularly, then yeah, try and improve and find a common way of being more sustainable. But there might very well come a point when you realize this isn't working. We have different values or different goals, and then yeah, I mean, as long as it's transparently communicated, this is I don't know, these are our goals and vision, and we need you to work this way. And if we see that it doesn't match, then I guess sustainability is just like other aspects. You expect certain standards as well on the delivery of services. And if sustainability is a core component of what's supposed to be delivered, then yeah, that would also be ground to potentially not work with certain suppliers ultimately.
And maybe that's a nice connection to education, because maybe Paula and then Aileen, about educating our own people. I mean, I think, you know, training and in terms of, I mean, I suppose there's a little bit more control, I would say, to a certain extent within a convention center in terms of maybe choosing the suppliers you work with. But what was your experience, Paula, you know, even in your project? Was there a lot of interest? Did you need to like train people, or were people kind of already on board? Or did you kind of need to convince them?
I think what was lovely with the ISO 2012 was that you're actually very active with the stakeholder. So it was, we found so many solutions just speaking with our own staff. So I think it was getting them involved. Everybody was ready on the board. And then those we couldn't involve, we were telling what we were doing. So, but it was, everybody was really excited about the opportunities and possibilities. And then, of course, we have a lot of suppliers. So there as well, we've been speaking and finding the solutions together. So this is the nice thing also, that you think the sustainability is really expensive. It takes your time, and actually you can, but it's many times no other cost than just finding the time and getting people together who use. We like the encounters of different people.
Thanks. Yeah, I totally agree. And do you, Aileen, what about you? Your experience of working with, you know, you've got this expertise, but you know, sometimes we're working with suppliers. There needs to be some sort of an education process, but you don't want to be too. I suppose the business case maybe is what maybe works in that element if they're not totally on board.
Exactly. It's showing in the benefits, really. Yeah. So the businesses understand that what they do as a restaurant does impact the wider team in Glasgow. So when we were very keen to join the Global Destination Sustainability Index, it was to promote the city's green credentials to win low carbon, energy, and renewable conferences. That was the original rationale when we looked to present our city in that way. So we gave the confidence to the academics working in engineering that if they bid with us, we weren't going to embarrass them when they brought their low energy event there. So that was the practical reasons. And then working with our sector chairs of our hotels group, our restaurants group, working with venues, it was that third party accreditation that was very easy to articulate, because it was to show the badge of honour almost that you've gone through this, and hand on heart you have the credentials. But part of that process is where you save money. So I think even coming out of COVID crisis, when we know that tourism and hospitality has been severely hit in destinations that have been impacted that way, a way of saving money is looking at your green credentials. And that resonates with a general manager in a hotel. It resonates with owners of restaurants. So a lot of it comes down to treat sustainability the way you would treat your team training or your licensing laws, your health and safety and health and hygiene practices. Add sustainability in along with what you're already doing as a business. And then everybody rises to the occasion if you do it that way.
It's kind of normalizing it completely in your way of actually doing something. So just one more question. Somebody has asked, how important is it to market your event with the sustainability event element highlighted, or should you just assume the delegates will expect that the event is sustainable? Does anybody want to jump in on that?
I think Paula's example of those amazing boards that you put out in the exhibition, they were fabulous because you were doing it in all of your planning, but for AEIE, you were telling the delegates what you'd done. I thought that was phenomenal and it was just so clever. What feedback did you get, Paula, from the delegates when they saw that?
Yeah.
Well, happiness, I guess. I think everybody wants to be on this team, not on the polluting team. So it, of course, gives happier participants.
Yeah. I mean, when
education and communication, that's the key, I would say.
Yeah, I remember I used to work for the European Academy of Allergy and asking, in surveys, asking attendees about, how positively they view sustainability. And I mean, you're talking about like it's off the chart. You're talking about like it's very few people who really, maybe there's people who are not particularly interested, but for the people who are interested, then it really is like a very important factor. And that was also my experience in organizing meetings, events as well, congresses, that you really need to tell people about what you're doing, because we can assume that we know what we're doing, but if you don't really explain to people what they're doing, do you agree, Laura?
Yeah, I think having clearly communicating to participants and also with the team, suppliers, everyone who's involved in the conference before and during, it's so important to help create, I think, another buzz around the event, that there's a common purpose and common goal as well, and everyone can contribute towards it and help make a difference. And that's really powerful if you can really put that in numbers or concretely, and it's not just hidden somewhere. No one even knows that they're contributing to these great initiatives.
Yeah. So on that note, and that positive note, tell everybody about it. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to spread the word. I'd just like to say a few thank yous. First of all, I'd like to thank Alexandra at EXPOFORUM and the team there for co-hosting this. I'd like to thank on the KT side, Nikki and Stefan, who did the coordination. I'd like to thank, of course, all our three speakers, Aileen, Paula and Laura, for their great contribution and the great discussion afterwards. And I'd like to thank the attendees. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for engaging with so many questions. We really appreciate it. I think it's great to keep the conversation moving. And as many of the speakers have said, if you've got questions or comments or you want to follow up with us individually, we're quite happy to provide you more information. So on that note, I wish you all a wonderful summer, and I look forward to seeing you all again sometime soon, either online or in person. Thank you.